Hi friends, Mrs. Harris here. Today we are going to look at an artist named Paul Klee. Our I can statement is, I can take Paul Klee's idea of hiding a message in an artwork using the multiples of 12 for my own artwork. Paul Klee is a Swiss-German artist. He lived to be the age of 60. He was very interested in color theory. He painted objects that encourage people to feel emotions rather than painting realistic objects like a house or a tree. He liked to paint with as few lines as possible. Sometimes the objects or people he painted looked more like colors and shapes rather than the real things. This is called abstract art. Sir Isaac Newton created color theory. He invented the color wheel in 1666. Color theory merges science and art for a visual effect. And again, that's what Paul Klee was striving for. Let's look at a few of the things that Sir Isaac Newton discovered. Primary colors, we know about these. Red, yellow, blue. Secondary colors, we also know about these. Orange, green, and violet, or as you guys call it, purple. Neutral colors are brown, black, grays, and whites. Complementary colors are colors that get along, like red and green, orange and blue, yellow and purple. Warm colors, red, yellow, and orange. Cool colors, blue, green, and purple. A hue is the name of a color. Value is the lightness and the darkness of the color. Shade is where we add black to a color. A little trick to remember that shade is where you add black is think about a sunny day. The grass is green, but look at how it's darker in the shade than it is in the full light. So you'll add black. Tint is where we add white. Let's take another look at Paul Klee's artwork. There's not a lot of lines to define what we're looking at. He's more interested in the way the color relates to each other. Again, objects are not identifiable. This is called abstract art. We're going to be using our color theory information in our drawing. We're going to be using the multiples of 12 to create our own Paul Klee. Now let's look at the multiples of 12, something we need for 5th grade. We're going to create a column, but we're going to leave out the number 5 and 11. This is a little trick on how to do your 12 table. Next, let's count by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 0, and then repeat. Now, here's where the math begins. Next, add your equations 1 through 12, and notice, we've got the answers. Pretty cool. All right, let's start our Paul Klee. I'm super excited about this. First thing we need to do is create a grid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the paper and just make 2-inch tick marks because I need to create my own grid. And this is the easiest way to do it. So I've done one side, and now I'm going to go do the other side. Again, you're going to be doing all sides of the paper because we need to connect these lines. So it's just best to work your way around doing your 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tick mark and connect it with the tick mark across from it. Okay, once I've got my grid system, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to block out the ones that I am not going to put equations in. All right, so what I've done is I've blocked out where we're not going to be putting our equations. On the left-hand side of my paper, I've skipped 1 and I've done 4 columns. Then I've skipped 2 and I've only done 2 columns. On the right-hand side of my paper, I did 2, skipped 2, did 2. Then I did 1, skipped 4, and did 1. Kind of the opposite of that. You can see how we've got 2 and then 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my equation. But because I've only got so many grid squares, I cannot do anything except 3 through 8. If I go above 8, I've got too many numbers and they're not gonna fit. We're just trying to make this a fun shape, kind of like an arrow. Okay, I'm gonna use the equation 6 times 12, which equals 72, because it will fit in there nicely. I'm gonna start right off with markers. I'm not gonna do this with pencil. And I'm gonna pick some markers that are complementary perhaps. So I'm gonna start with reds and greens. So I've got some markers that come in different values of reds and greens. So let me grab all those. All right, so I'm gonna start and I'm going to do and I'm gonna use the wide edge of this. 6. And then I'm gonna go ahead and repeat this. And while I'm creating this pattern, I am just repeating it while I've got that marker in my hand. So now I'm gonna go with a green color and do my 1, 1, 1. I've chosen to do 12 in the same color because I want you to know that it's the value of 12. Remember, you can work with any medium you have available, crayons, markers, colored pencils, to write your equation. Once I have finished writing my equation, I'm going to begin to work with patterns. I'm going to put patterns in the background of the equation square. I want you to remember, math is full of patterns, kind of like the 12 pattern I showed you at the beginning of this video. When you're adding patterns, make sure you just work in one area, as I'm doing just the ones now. I've done everything else. You have to be careful not to end up doing line after line after line. You want to really dress it up a little bit. So I'm going to change that up in just a second after I finish all my curly cues. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've done. I have started this pattern up the number 1 and I will continue it. I've also started this other pattern down here in the X's. I want you to notice that before it was just straight lines, which kind of mimic this one, which is just diagonal lines. So I've added these little curved lines. It kind of looks a little bit more like bamboo, kind of like something that we did with our tree houses. I want you to know I used a ultra fine Sharpie, I used a fine Sharpie, and then I also have this one, which is really nice. It's called a Chisel Tip. You can use either of them. If you use this one, but you want the thicker one, obviously you're gonna color it in. I use the Chisel Tip to create that nice thick line. I want you to notice how I chose to do my numbers in my equation in marker, but you could use crayons or colored pencils. Again, whatever you guys have access to. The nice part about this is we're gonna go ahead and start adding color in here too. You don't have to do all your pattern in black marker. Your pattern can be done in simple colored markers. So maybe I'll do some dots over here of orange. I'm gonna outline the orange with blue, I've already decided. So I'm laying down the orange first because the orange is a lighter color. And again, I'm just randomly placing dots in here and I'm gonna continue it throughout this equation portion because I want my patterns to match within my Paul Klee. Okay, so you can see what I've done there. But again, work in one area. Again, I'm adding colored pencil here to kind of help camouflage my equation. That's what your goal is. Your goal is to make this disappear. Again, the relationship between the colors is what you're looking for. So I'm not gonna use colors that don't necessarily get along. I'm gonna use colors that work well together. So I've got this dark blue and I've done 2 stripes. Maybe I'll make a pattern and change it to this color, this lighter blue. Once you've added color in every square, we don't wanna leave the squares white, so I would add a color behind there. Maybe I'll just use a crayon, and I've used marker and I'm gonna use crayon. I'm not gonna color on top of my marker because it would ruin the look of it. And I'm going to create this, give this some solid color. So nothing is gonna stay white. Once you've got that all done, then what I want you to do is I want you to cut away this negative space. And again, when you're cutting, I'm doing precision cutting, so I'm allowed to use the front of it, but when we're cutting, we're always cutting from back here. And it's just gonna give it a really fun shape. The kids at school will be attaching theirs to a colored piece of construction paper. Obviously, you guys probably don't have that at your access at home. So what you can do is even just put it on a wall somewhere that's gonna create a colorful background for it. Some of the kids might even choose to create an outline around their equation. That's gonna be an option for them, and you can do that too. And once you've got that cut out, then you're gonna go cut out the front end of it. And so you'll have that all cut out. It kind of looks like an arrow, which is kind of fun. So again, our goal is to create a relationship with the color. Our goal is to kind of camouflage it because we don't necessarily want everybody to know what it is, but you want to write it neatly. You don't want it to look all sloppy. You want it to look like it's done really nice and neatly. You want your equation to be well read. Remember, you can only use the equations 3 through 8 because otherwise it's not going to fit on the paper. So there you go. That's going to be your finished product. But again, mine's not done.